In an era of economic globalization, the scope of language business shifts from simple foreign language teaching to all sorts of language-related enterprises and activities.
Hi, my name is Cindy Cave. I'm from Brisbane, Australia originally, but based in Brussels. I'm a sign language interpreter. So in Australia, I'm accredited as an Auslan interpreter. Auslan is the sign language of Australia. Each country has its own sign language, official sign language. In Europe, I'm working in Brussels, where I've worked for a European NGO, the European Union of the Deaf, who have a mixture of deaf people from all over Europe, some Britain, some from Germany, Netherlands, Denmark. The board consists of various people, and so that requires a language being able to communicate with international sign. One day I received an email with a job that was being advertised in Brussels for the European Union of the Deaf requiring a sign language interpreter. I was encouraged to apply, but I thought, how could an Australian work in Europe? So I contacted the organisation, the NGO who was looking for the interpreter, the European Union of the Deaf, and I said, I'm an Auslan interpreter, is there any way, I've been sent this email, is there any chance that I could possibly even apply? Can I get more information? I then found out the executive director was from England, so he uses British Sign Language, and Auslan and British Sign Language is similar. So he encouraged me to apply. I applied, I was shortlisted and eventually successful in the position. So that afforded me the opportunity to work in Brussels for 2 years, and it's been a fantastic experience. Sign language training, I understand, happens the same as spoken language training, whereby native speakers of the language come and present and teach a class by immersion. So often you'll find language training courses that involve Auslan have specific times where they have Auslan only weekends, for example, where a group of 30 people will come together. They're not allowed to speak, they just sign, and they learn how to sign by all the deaf people who are there. International sign is a contact space, so if the person is more familiar with, say, American Sign Language, you will see possibly more American Sign Language come out in your international sign. So depending on what languages you have contact with, you will see that come into your sign language a lot more.
How is the question of recognition of sign language interpreters? Are you being fully recognized as the professionals you are?
I think for many years sign language interpreters have been seen as the hired help, or the people there to help deaf people, which is a very, I think, welfare-based mentality. Now I think we're starting to see people see us as professionals, as our spoken language professional colleagues are. I think it's taken some time, and I think there's still a lot more work to do. I think some people see sign language as gestures that looks interesting and fun, but in fact sign languages, like all spoken languages, have grammar, syntax, everything that incorporates a language, each sign language does have. And so therefore interpreters have to work within a language and therefore are able to express very dense concepts through sign language, and I hope that in time people are able to see that. But as a profession, I still think there's some way yet to go. We do have a professional association that represents sign language interpreters in Europe, the European Forum of Sign Language Interpreters, ESLI, and recently AIC will be accepting membership of sign language interpreters. So we hope the advent of this will assist us in sign language interpreters as being seen and regarded as professionals that we are. Different sign language interpreters have different language pairs. So coming from Australia, my language pairs would be a sign language and English, but that's not to say the same for, there are many other sign language interpreters who speak other spoken languages as well.
Could you try and describe the process of signing? Because we spoken language interpreters, when we describe what we do, we tend to say that we take the idea and we strip it of its linguistic dress in one language and sort of hold that idea in our head, and then put that idea as you would correctly with the grammar and idioms and so on of the other language. But is it that kind of process in sign language, or how does it actually work? How do you build a sentence in sign from something that's coming in through your headphones?
Okay, I think when we're interpreting from a sign language into a spoken language, I think the difference between what is happening for our spoken language colleagues is that we're working between two modalities. We do the same work as spoken language interpreters by hearing one message in one language, undertaking the neurological processes that happen, redressing that information and putting it out into a signed form in a language and in a culturally acceptable way that the deaf community can appreciate. Anything complex is, just as in spoken language with spoken language interpreting, is challenging into a sign language situation as well. Things that are very complex, scientific terms, linguistic terms, can be challenging depending on who the interpreter is. There are numerous deaf people who have doctorates in linguistics, for example, but there are also interpreters who also have an MA or further in linguistics, and they're the sort of people that you would want to engage for linguistic type conferences because they have the background, they're familiar with the content, and they're able to deliver that in a way that is understood to everyone. As for new sort of topics that arise, scientific terms that perhaps the audience and the interpreter may not be familiar with, we interpret it in such a way that we fingerspell, for example. For example, in university settings, when a university student is going through their university studies and they're deaf and they have interpreters there will often be a dialogue between the deaf students and the interpreters as to how best to sign, for example, jurisprudence. You don't want to fingerspell that every time you hear that in law studies. So that would be something that would be agreed to between the interpreter team and the deaf students to come to an agreeable sign for various terms such as that. What I would like to see is for sign languages to be seen and given the same respect as spoken languages are. There are 23 official spoken languages of the European Union, but there's also another 30 official sign languages of Europe. So I would like to see people recognise them with the same value and respect that is being given to spoken languages. Also, I would like to see sign language interpreters being respected for the work that they do, and they do the same work that our spoken language interpreter peers do. So I would like that to hopefully come into effect, and we're seeing this more and more. We're seeing European institutions engage sign language interpreters a lot more. We've got an MEP in the European Parliament who's deaf. We have deaf people more active in their political life, having more of a voice, having more of a say. So hopefully we'll see that transpire in the future. And that's what I would like to see.